Today we're sitting here with Catherine Onyemelukwe, who is author of Nigeria Revisited, My Life and Loves Abroad, and this is a memoir.
It is a memoir.
It is a memoir, and one of the things that I found interesting was that your journey to Nigeria started when you were in the Peace Corps in 1962. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure, yes. This was only the second year of the Peace Corps,
Okay.
so it was a fairly new enterprise. There had actually been 3 groups to Nigeria before our group went. We had fantastic training at UCLA for 8 weeks in the summer, and then we went to Nigeria in the fall, in September. And my assignment as a Peace Corps volunteer was to teach German in a post-secondary school and part-time teach outside of Lagos, which was the capital, in a small rural school. So I had the breadth of experience. Most volunteers taught in smaller towns,
Right.
but I was right there in the capital city, which was great. But I had the experience of going part-time outside of Lagos to a small school.
Oh, beautiful.
So, yeah.
And you came from the Midwest, so 1962 America, Midwestern girl, and you go to Africa. What were some of the things that that you found interesting when you got there, but different, because you really became part of the actual culture, not just a bystander?
Right, right. Well, the thing that for me is the biggest difference is the sense of community and the feeling of belonging that you get in Nigeria and in other West African and I think most of Africa's countries. It just struck me after I'd been there quite a few months. I had many Nigerian friends, and the students I was teaching were all Nigerians, and I got this sense of how they were so tied to their own people, their own tribe or ethnic group, if you want to call it that,
Right.
and their town and family, and it was just visibly strong in people. And I thought, I never had that. I mean, I loved my family,
Right.
but I never had this sense of this is where I belong, and I'll belong there forever, and I have a home.
And see, people don't really understand that in countries in Africa. They assume that all the people in Nigeria are just Nigerian, but there are various ethnic groups with different languages and customs. And you actually talk about that in the book, especially when you start talking about your own family, starting your own family there.
Right.
Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yes. My husband is Igbo, so I tend to use the word tribe. My daughter says, "Mother, don't say that, it's outdated," but Nigerians use that word.
Right.
So you can say ethnic group if you wish. But he's Igbo, which is the 3rd largest tribe in Nigeria. I met him through, socially, he wasn't involved with the Peace Corps. We started dating, and then when we married and started our family, it was really important for me that they feel part of his town, and for him, even more for him, I would say, than for me. But I came to feel that same pull to know where you're from. So we took our first son to the village for a naming ceremony, and I described that in the book. It was a wonderful event. I had saved a little bit of his umbilical cord,
Right.
and we buried that in the village, in the compound, and it's a sign, a symbol that he belongs there forever.
Right.
Parents do that even today, sometimes not as frequently as people did at that time, but if they don't have the umbilical cord, they'll take a snippet of hair or something to bury, to just tie a child to his or her home forever.
And you have some really great pictures inside the book. The picture that I thought was the sweetest was of you giving birth to your first child, and you had the wedding picture because your husband wasn't there.
Right.
But it was just, you still felt that closeness and that connection. How different was it? Because again, this was the 1960s. So how different was it when you left Nigeria and you would come back to visit your family?
It was very different. The first time I came back, I had finished Peace Corps, which was a 2-year assignment. I knew I was going back to get married, but I wasn't going back as a Peace Corps volunteer.
Right.
Some of my friends were sort of puzzled. Why are you going back? You're going to get married to a black man in Nigeria? And particularly one friend's mother said, well, this was northern Kentucky where we lived. One friend's mother said to me on the phone, she said, it's all right to be around 1 or 2 black people, but I can't imagine being, the only white person in a group. And I realized that for her it was an odd sense that I would be willing to do this, not only willing, but embracing it and wanting to do it, but also how sort of retrograde it sounded from her. And that it just wasn't my sense of life.
Right.
And I so valued the sense of belonging and being part of the culture. When we were married, which was the Christmas of that following year, we had a sort of, before the wedding, a little piece in the New York Times.
Mhm.
There was a friend of ours who was a correspondent in
Right.
Nigeria. And then after the wedding, a picture that appeared in Life magazine.
Which is in the
And
book.
a picture on the front page of the Connecticut Post, not the Connecticut Post, sorry, the Northern Kentucky Post, of us kissing.
Which would have been a big scandal.
And
in
it
the
was a
60s.
big scandal. My parents still lived in the town there, and actually interracial marriage was against the law.
Right.
It was pre-1967, the Loving case. So my parents got a lot of hate mail
Mhm.
and phone calls. You know, at that time you could find people's
Yeah.
phone numbers. I didn't know about it. They didn't tell me. My brother told me some years later,
Mhm.
which was, I'm glad he didn't, but it was unfortunate. When I went back later, there were times my sister's husband, I wanted to stay with them during the Biafran War when I had come back, or at least
Right.
for a time, and he was not happy to have us in the house, me with our mixed race children,
Mhm.
my two mixed race at the time. So there were challenges.
Right.
Yeah.
And now it's more than 50 years
Yeah.
on, and you just see the progress.
I see
right?
progress. I
You
see
the
there's a
progress,
long way to
and
go,
you-
but
yes, and
sure
we
you
had a
do.
president whose father was
Oh
from
my
Africa,
gosh,
so that
yeah.
had to be something
Right.
very.
And
simple.
Nigerians just love that.
Yeah. Again, the book is Nigeria Revisited: My Life and Loves Abroad, and I do want to ask you one thing because
Mhm.
I love
Oh.
the outfit you have on. Can you tell me a
Right.
little bit about that?
Sure, sure. I don't normally wear the Nigerian dress, but
Mhm.
I do when I have the opportunity like this.
Mhm.
And I had this made in Nigeria.
Mhm.
The cloth is from there. It's what's called a Dutch print,
Mhm.
because it used to be that this cloth was made in Holland and sold into what was then the colonies, the British colonies. So that's the fabric. And this is a typical sort of everyday style.
Okay.
Nigerian women dress in amazing ways. So when I'm there, I always look a little bit underdressed. So sometimes I'll wear an outfit like this. The earrings I wanted to mention are from their Fulani,
Okay.
which is a tribe in northern Nigeria, a very
Right.
powerful group in northern Nigeria. These are from the Metropolitan Museum, where they do the replicas of
Mhm.
traditional jewelry.
Thank you for sharing with us, and
You're welcome.
I loved hearing about the jewelry and the clothing especially, and just, it's a compelling story. If you get a chance, Nigeria Revisited, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful piece.
So thank you so much, Aisha.
Thank you.
Pleasure.